Hey all, if you're not caught up to the latest episode, you might not have heard the good news, but our Ghosts of Harrenhal merchandise site is open for the holidays. So if you're looking to get your loved one some Ghosts of Harrenhal merchandise, head to our shop. Or if you're interested in asking your loved ones for some Ghosts of Harrenhal merchandise for yourself, head to ghostsofharrenhal.threadless.com and stock up. All right, on with the show.
Hello, welcome to the Ghosts of Harrenhal. My name's Simon.
And I'm Mackelly.
Thank you for joining us for episode 265 of our chapter-by-chapter book review of A Song of Ice and Fire by George Martin. Today we'll be discussing chapter 39 of A Feast for Crows, that's Cersei 9.
And as always, we're going to chat about the chapter and try not to spoil any future plot points for you. Unless, of course, you have a Buy Me a Coffee Sustainer tier that includes spoilers, then we will spoil things for you. Regardless, hopefully we'll provide you some entertainment along the way.
We'll summarise what happened, discuss our thoughts on it, provide some useful background, compare it to the television show, indulge a little pedantry and cover some relevant news and listener correspondence. Be sure to check out the show notes, they'll provide some additional information about the characters and geography of this chapter. How are you?
I'm doing all right. We're recording a day early in preparation for the lengthy chapter next week, or the next episode, I should say, because we're going to try and double up here.
Yeah. I was going to say, sort of braggily, I've already read it, but I started it and I didn't get through it. So still some work to do on that next one. This one I did read several times. And
all right, good. Yeah, hey, there you go.
But actually, I did think my mind is clouded by that future chapter. I've got to keep focused here. Yes. We're
trying not to have to take a break for Thanksgiving. We're trying to give you all a Thanksgiving week episode. So
yeah, we'll manage it.
Yeah.
By hook or by crook, we'll manage it.
So how are you doing?
I'm okay. I do have evidence to suggest that I might be an idiot.
264 previous episodes are not enough. You've got additional.
Ouch.
I know. Wow. That's so out of character for me to take a dig.
I know
like
that was a Simon comment right there. God. Well, more compelling. Well, perhaps if I went back and listened to them, I'd begin to think, yes, he's right. He's got a point. But this is definite, clear evidence. Okay.
So let's hear it.
So our son we handed down a car to our son. So he's got an old car. It's 19 years old, and it's a great car, man. It's the best car I've ever given to anyone.
Well, there you go. Good qualifier.
And it is better than the best car I was ever gifted by one car.
Right. Sure. I follow you. Yes.
Nobody ever gave me one. But it's showing its age and it needs a little bit of TLC. It needed new tires. And we're getting to winter. You know, you need decent tires on your car for winter. So I told Lucas, I'll get you tires. I'll do that for you. And Carson said, that thing's due its inspection. So Simon, because he's an idiot, thought, I'll kill two birds with one stone. So I booked an appointment to get new tires and the inspection.
It failed the inspection because it needed new tires?
It got the new tires, and then it failed the inspection for other reasons.
Oh.
And it can't be fixed, but they ain't giving me the money back for those tires I just put on that car.
Oh, no. Oh, I see. Yes, I see the flaw here. I see the fly in the ointment. Yeah.
Carson said when I got back, she said, I did think about that. I was like, why didn't you say something?
Right. Oh, so they won't just like, hey, we haven't actually driven on these tires. Could you just take them back off and put the old ones back on?
Would you like some tires?
Oh, wow. Yeah, that hurts. So the car is not, its life expectancy has been reached.
Well, there's fingers are crossed for a possibility. When they first told me, they said there was nothing they could do. But they jury-rigged something, and they think maybe they can do something. So I have to take it back tomorrow, and then I'll get the news on whether the patient might pull through tomorrow.
Right, yes. So the issue is something that, if it can be kind of rigged up, it'll pass inspection and then it'll be fine. It's just an issue of passing inspection.
Correct. Yeah, okay. He said that, practically there's nothing wrong. He said there's basically a containment system on some of the fuel lines, and he showed me, actually brought me the pipe, and it had been chewed through by something, and he said the problem is that part doesn't exist anymore.
Oh,
you can't get that
old.
part.
Oh,
and he said so the jury rigged something with something that isn't the same part, and he said it'll do it, but it's a very corrosive atmosphere there, so it won't last very long.
So either they'll have to do this every year that the car gets inspected, or you're on borrowed time with these brand new tires.
Yes, I mean, Lucas can screech around all he wants on these things, because
that's right.
They're going to outlive the car. That is clear.
Oh, man. Well, that's a problem.
How stupid. I mean, basically, I don't know if you've bought tires recently. They are phenomenally expensive.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Easily.
I know they are.
If I'd known this thing was going to fail its inspection, I could have sold it for parts, added in the money I spent on the tires, and bought a car.
Right.
They're so expensive. It was crazy.
Yes, they are. Oh, that's a tough one. Tough break. I mean,
yeah.
I know the car is 19 years old, but you probably could not have foreseen that they were going to say, yeah, sorry, this thing has got to be junked, Funnily enough,
they called me up and said, hey, it's got the same problems it had last year, but, it'll be fine. Just come on down and pick it up. And when I came down to pick it up, they went, yes, about that.
You see, a thing is this.
Mm-hmm.
It's got one more problem.
Yeah.
And this one can't be fixed.
So basically what I'm doing tomorrow is I'm taking it back, having driven it around for a little bit, and they have to recheck the engine light, because you can't pass the inspection with the engine light. So they can turn the engine light off, but then they can't just put the computer in and say, oh, no engine light, everything's fine. It has to sort of go through all of its sort of startup routine and pass everything, but it's allowed to have one incomplete on its monitors.
Okay.
And so that's the thing. I have to take it back when all of the other monitors are complete and the one that's going to fail is incomplete.
Okay. And that'll work.
It's a tightrope, but if I can do it, they pass inspection. Yeah.
A razor thin line, but there's a chance.
Exactly. I know exactly how many miles I'm going to drive before I take that thing back.
Oh, yes.
Because 2 years in a row, that's how we've passed it. The same thing. 2 years in a row.
Okay. Well.
And I think we've got one more year, and then at the 20-year mark, it only has to pass a safety inspection from that point onwards. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. So as it gets older, it gets easier.
Tires might not be the last tires this car gets.
That's right. Well, best of luck. Let us all know how it goes.
I'm an idiot.
Well, I maintain that you could not have foreseen that it was going to get a toe tag when you got there. Or when you dropped it off, I should say.
Yeah, but there's a sequence to these things.
Yes.
Get that first.
I could definitely see that side as well.
All right, well, let's get down to business. How do we leave Cersei Lannister? Last we saw of Cersei, she was crying crocodile tears. Is that an Americanism? Do you understand crocodile tears?
It is. Yeah, yes, I do.
Checking.
Yep.
Over the news that Loras Tyrell had been mortally wounded in winning Dragonstone. Queen Margaery Tyrell, who I suppose at some point we should start calling her Queen Margaery Lannister. No, Baratheon. Forgive me.
Depends on who you ask.
Refuses to accept that Loras will die, and it certainly won't be for want of prayer. Cersei wasted a bit more of her life on false rumours of Tyrion. She regretted her decision to surrender Felice Stokeworth to Qyburn, as she is no longer in a fit state to succeed her now departed mother, Tanda. Cersei charged Grand Maester Pycelle with the job of keeping Gyles Rosby alive. She dreamed of her fateful run-in with Maggie the Frog, and she confirmed that Osney could defeat Boris Blunt in single combat, which solidified a plan in her head. Mackelly, why don't we give the summary of this one?
All right. Well, Grand Maester Pycelle sadly reports on the death of Lord Gyles Rosby. May he rest in peace. Cersei reminds him, though, that he was ordered to keep the Lord Treasurer alive. He apologizes, but contends that there was nothing more that could have been done. She then proceeds to terrorize him for his list of failures. Joffrey, Robert, Jon Arryn, probably Ned if he had been in his care long enough, even though he wasn't. So she's just throwing that in there.
That's the Ned Stark that was beheaded by her child. Okay,
yes.
Just checking.
Yeah.
Okay.
He didn't clarify that with her as he probably could have. Anyway, Pycelle blusters, but he is terrified. Cersei accuses him of plotting with the Tyrells against her. He denies it. She demands to know what medicines he's been taking to Queen Maragery. He tries to deny again, but eventually admits that it's sleeping draughts and, well, moon tea. That's what Cersei wanted to hear right there. She dismisses him with a final demand, that Pycelle say that he had witnessed Rosby bequeath his title and lands to the Iron Throne on his deathbed.
We'll be right back.
Hello, friends. Are you ready to make some unforgettable memories? Well, if so, consider the Marriott Bonvoy program. Discover the perfect destination for your summer getaway and unlock exclusive deals on luxurious accommodations. With our affiliate partnership, you'll enjoy unbeatable savings and a seamless booking experience. Don't let summer slip away. Visit Marriott Bonvoy today and make this vacation season one for the books. Use our Ghosts of Harrenhal affiliate page to check it all out and buy Bonvoy points or give some as a gift. The link to our page is in the show notes.
Cersei is gleeful with Tyenna Merryweather and Osmond Kettleblack. Queen Maragery is for the axe. Tyenna reminds her that there are 2 Tyrell armies within easy reach. Cersei agrees that they need more proof so that Mace himself must condemn his own daughter. Not easy. Queen Maragery is always with her 3 younger cousins, but Cersei wonders if they could be in on the debauchery too. Tyenna and her husband must sup with Cersei that evening. Cersei calls for boar and music.
Well, unfortunately, the kitchens can't do boar, so ham it is instead. Cersei's not pleased, but Tyenna dines well, while on the other hand, Orton looks afraid and keeps glancing at the musician. Cersei wants to move Sir Harys Swift to Master of Coin, or as it's being called these days, Lord Treasurer, and move Orton Merryweather to the King's Hand, a reward for his loyal service. And now a reward for the singer, the Blue Bard, a lute smashed across his face and an accusation of sleeping with Queen Maragery. He denies, but he's taken to the black cells where Cersei watches as Qyburn tortures and mutilates the man until he confesses. His story does get a bit out of hand, and so Cersei has to walk him back a bit.
Sir Talad the Tall, Lambert Turnberry, Jalabar Jo, yes, they're all good, but not the Red Wine Twins, and definitely not Sir Loras. As long as he sings the same tune at trial, he'll get to take the black. Cersei retires and bathes with Tyenna Merryweather. Cersei thinks Tyenna is besotted with her, which should keep her and Orton leal. Cersei worries that this will be hard on Tommen. He loves Queen Maragery and her cousins. Tyenna suggests that the youngest of the 3, Alla, be spared, a witness to the others' sins. The last piece will be Ser Osney's confession. All the men would learn that confession was the only way to salvation.
Cersei dreams that she's tortured by Tyrion, much as she just witnessed. She wakes with a scream. Tyenna doesn't understand why Cersei is so worried about Tyrion. Cersei confesses the whole story of Maggie the Frog, despite Melara Weatherspoon's admonition to never speak of the prophecy, lest it come true. Tyenna tries to comfort. She was an old crone jealous of Cersei's beauty, and she would have known of Tyrion's stature. But Cersei's not convinced. Too many facets are falling into place. But stating that no harm can befall Tommen while she is alive does give her some solace. She actually breaks her fast with Tommen that morning, who is just so very sweet.
Tommen won't see Queen Maragery that day. She and her cousins are at the Sept preparing for Maiden's Day. Cersei has him run along and calls for Ser Osney. He's his usual bold self. She wants him to confess, but he cannot get past the teasing stage with Queen Maragery. But Cersei insists he must confess to the High Septon that he slept with Margaery and her cousins Megha and Eleanor, but not Alla. Alla would weep and plead for the others to stop. Osney is okay with this, but he'd like to have slept with a queen to give it a ring of truth. Cersei almost slaps him for this, but decides that succumbing is easier. He rips her clothes, but asks her to keep the crown on.
Oh boy. Well, the trap is set. She has all the things she needs to spring it.
Yes, including, and that's going to be the big topic of conversation here, I think, an actual piece of evidence, not just made up nonsense.
Right. Yes, we will definitely get into the moon tea.
Because the Blue Bard denied it until he was tortured to the point where anyone would have admitted to it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The 3 names mentioned, well, maybe, but they're only going to confess when threatened with the alternative.
Right.
So Osney admitted to her that he has not actually done this yet.
Right.
But that's not enough. But the moon tea.
Yeah. She must have been like, when he said that we were in her thoughts, so you'd think we would have heard him, but she must have been thinking, oh my goodness, did he actually say that? Is this actually true?
Apparently, what you think does manifest itself in the universe.
Yeah. We'll definitely get to that.
Yeah. So, Grand Maester Pycelle is completely outplayed by Cersei here, and sometimes I can never quite tell about Pycelle. I don't know sometimes if he sort of comes and goes in kind of waves, or if Martin doesn't quite know what his character should be, because sometimes he seems quite astute and manipulative, and sometimes he seems like a leaf on the wind a little bit.
Yes, I know what you mean. Yeah.
But
yeah,
I think often it's when he's in the presence of his betters, he becomes the leaf on the wind. When there are people that he can manipulate, he's good at it. But when he himself has to be manipulated, he's just a puppet on a string, you know.
Or, and I think maybe when Ned first got to King's Landing at that very first small council meeting, maybe it came up then that he's really good at pretending to be the doddering old man more so than he actually is. I wonder if that could be when he's being the leaf in the wind.
I don't know if you remember in the TV show, but he always walked incredibly slowly with a crooked back until he was alone, and then he had a little skip in his step and he danced around.
Did a little soft shoe.
Exactly.
But he's clearly being set up to do her bidding and lying. I mean, all of the beginning of this chapter is to rattle him, get him scared, get him worried. You know, she lists the men that Grand Maester Pycelle lost. Some of them, most of them, he either had no help, no chance, like Joffrey. Robert, we all know how Cersei felt about Robert surviving or not. Jon Arryn, he was literally killing Jon Arryn to hide Cersei's secret. And he never, I mean, aside from attending to Ned's broken leg, he never really cared for Ned, so. But
I'm actually going to go with Cersei here just a little bit. If Ned's head and body were dragged to Qyburn, he'd be like, I'm going to give it a shot.
You make a really good point right there. Yes, you're right. Yeah.
Pycelle throws up his hands, but Qyburn's in it to win.
That's right. Yeah, she left the Mountain off the list, who, Qyburn also couldn't save. Or at least his skull was sent to Dorne. So,
yep.
But she throws in there just for fun about Pycelle advising Aerys to open the gates for Tywin, which led to the sack of King's Landing.
What are you supposed to say to that as Pycelle? I mean, like, you're accusing me of helping your father?
Right. How does that work?
That's your accusation?
Yes, and I mean, he talked Aerys into opening the gates. That didn't mean that he told Tywin, "Hey, now come in and sack the city and rape and pillage and destroy everything in sight." That.
By the way, looking back on that, does that seem a little bit weird of Tywin? I mean, Tywin wanted a mystique around him of like ferocity and what have you, but that just seems like so gratuitous and unnecessary.
No, you're right.
The people of King's Landing weren't going to leap up and defend Aerys anytime soon.
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And then Pycelle is accused of killing Lord Gyles, and now accused of conspiring with Margaery to kill him. Last Cersei chapter, she straight out said, maybe you're the one that's killing him. And now she's saying, when did you and Margaery decide to conspire to kill Gyles? It's all utter nonsense. And quite honestly, if I were Pycelle, I would start to think long and hard about maybe it's time to retire back to Old Town and, sip some cider at the Quill and Tankard.
I would too. Good God. Who needs this?
I know, right? He said he was 84, right? So, I mean...
Yeah, I'm totally... I would advise against it being Qyburn, but that's just because I'm, an old fuddy-duddy who thinks it should be someone trained and not stripped of office for his deviousness and crimes,
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? The Grand Maester is appointed by the Citadel, so they would appoint someone that they feel is qualified, and maybe that person is young enough and spry enough to, I don't know. I mean, can you push back against Cersei? She's got the Dax decked against whoever
young
it is.
Enough and spry enough to get themselves killed.
Yes, that might be it, actually, yeah.
So, the Moon Tea. I mean, the beauty of this for Cersei is that she didn't have to plant the seed. I don't know why she didn't forgive Pycelle at that point. I forgive you for all of these people you let die.
I know.
You've come to me and told me that you're delivering Moon Tea to Queen Margaery.
Yeah.
Why would you sit on that, Pycelle? Don't you think that I, as the Queen's mother-in-law, would have been very interested to learn this piece of information?
Yeah, that is very true. You're right. Now, he claims that his oath prevents him from speaking on it.
We'll be right back.
This episode is sponsored by Audible. To get a free audiobook, or 2 if you're an Amazon Prime member, go to our exclusive URL, audibletrial.com/ghostsharrenhal. You can find the link in our show notes.
I will contend that his oath prevented him from giving Jon Arryn the Tears of Lys.
Yes. You're probably right there. Not saving him from it.
His oath is fungible, I believe.
Yeah. Well, Lysa gave him the Tears of Lys, but Pycelle didn't help save him when he surely knew what was happening there.
Put that in pedantry. Simon's an idiot again.
There's a lot of moving parts here. But so then the question is the Moon Tea story legit? Or was Pycelle picking up what Cersei was putting down?
Oh, interesting. You see, I took it as legit.
Yeah.
Because I would have thought if it wasn't legit, it would be something, he would have said something along the lines of, but there's one thing I should tell you. I've been taking Moon Tea to, he must know the implications of those words.
Oh, yeah, right. Absolutely. I mean, if she's taking Moon Tea, it's not because of her and Tommen's intimacy.
No.
No. There's a few things that work against...
Unless she's being ridiculously careful.
Right. Well, we did hold hands.
Exactly.
But there's a few things that muddy the water here with the Moon Tea, because later Osney is going to reiterate, as he's been maintaining throughout this whole plot, that he's never given the opportunity. She is never alone. And Qyburn spies are reporting nothing. And, Cersei cut. So he says, I'm giving her sleeping drafts and Moon Tea 4. And she cuts him off and says, I know what Moon Tea is for. So possibly could he be saying Moon Tea for her cousin Eleanor or, someone else?
Or period pains.
Right. Yes.
Because it could well have an alternative benefit as well.
Right. So, and then you ask the question, why would Margaery be going to Pycelle, a known Lannister loyalist? She has her own maester. Last Cersei chapter, Cersei said, or was told to Cersei, that Margaery is sending her own maester to Dragonstone. And we know that that Pycelle was working with Margaery before we know that Cersei was working with Margaery before Loras went to Dragonstone because Cersei says so in this conversation here. So why would she go to Pycelle for something so incriminating and not her own maester?
Interesting.
Yeah. And then...
Yep, I got nothing.
I mean, if you... The Blue Bard conversation, why would the Blue Bard hold her secret through so much torture if it was true? Now, maybe he didn't know that it was true. But if he did, why would he hang on to that? Losing an eye, losing teeth, and all the other torment that he went through. So,
yeah. All right. Well, moving on, because I got nothing. So she tries to steal. Well, I mean, she effectively does, we think, steal Rosby's lands for herself. And she considers giving those to Orain Waters, who's the Admiral of the Fleet, or
Lord Admiral, I think is his name.
Lord Admiral.
Yeah.
He himself has been angling for Dragonstone, but she thinks that's too much of a reach for a jumped up bastard from
from Driftmark. Yeah.
From Driftmark, exactly. But Rosby would be a decent fallback.
Yeah.
She at one point says he does consider bringing Littlefinger back as Lord Treasurer because he was good at it.
Yeah.
He made people believe he was good at it anyway.
So about the Rosby ward, here we go again. The still mysteriously unnamed ward comes up again. Now, he's probably not going to, he or she, I think it's a he. I think they use the pronoun he.
I think they might have done, yeah.
Probably not going to be happy with Cersei's plan for Rosby's estate, for one thing.
Presumably not.
Here's what we know.
So, unless he happens to be Orain Waters.
Right. That would work out perfectly.
Exactly.
Here's what we know. When Felice Stokeworth made it to King's Landing from Stokeworth, she called the ward an ill-born wretch, which indicates someone of low birth, right? Ill-born. Cersei says in this chapter that the ward is not of Rosby's blood, which suggests that the ward is not a Rosby by blood. So,
with you,
there's only one other Rosby known to have lived anywhere near the current time that we're in, and that is Bethany Rosby, who was the 6th wife of Lord Walder. So, Bethany and Walder had 5 kids. A ward assumes dependent, right? That, they're dependent upon this lord here. So,
yes,
you would think that would eliminate Sir Perwyn, because he's a knight. That's one of Walder and Bethany's sons.
I see.
Ben Frey is dead, so sadly eliminates.
Probably not him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Williman is a maester. Probably not him. And Rosalind is a girl who is pregnant at the twins with Edmure Tully's baby.
Oh,
probably,
that's Rosalind. Oh, yeah.
Probably not the ward in question.
Right.
So
you've ruled out 4 of the 5.
Yes.
Who's the 5th?
The 5th is Oliver Frey, who was Robb's squire, the one that was really devoted to Robb.
Huh.
And he was not at the Red Wedding. And here's one other little detail. His brother, Williman, is a maester, like I just mentioned.
You did
Guess
say.
where he's in service?
Rosby?
Rosby. Yeah.
Huh.
But Oliver is of noble birth. Kinda. But
he's not directly Gyles Rosby's line. He would be like a nephew or something, assuming Bethany was a sister.
Yeah, we don't know how Bethany is related to Gyles,
right.
but
at closest he's an uncle,
right,
to a nephew.
Yes,
it could be further. He could be a first cousin once removed or something like that. Yeah.
So,
well, I think you're onto something there.
Maybe,
and that's interesting that it's a bit of a thumbed nose at the phrase, if that's true as well.
Who don't take that kind of thing very well, as we've seen.
Purportedly.
Yes,
yeah. Yes.
But then, you mentioned about how Littlefinger, she almost considered for a second bringing Littlefinger back as Master of Coin or Lord Treasurer, whatever we want to call it these days. I would love to have seen the fallout from that. I really wish she would have called him back because would he go?
Well, here's why if I was Littlefinger, I wouldn't go. Because when he left, it felt like the realm had been run financially very, very well. But almost the instant he was gone, the Iron Bank arrived demanding 6 million gold crowns that they couldn't pay.
Right.
So where did all that money go?
Yes, true. Right. Yeah. But he's winning the Vale Lords over and becoming the Lord Protector of the Vale. Would he give that up and return to King's Landing? But if he doesn't go, then is he in open rebellion to the throne? You know?
Right.
And what's he going to do with Sansa? He certainly can't bring Sansa back to King's Landing, so I guess she would stay at the Eyrie.
Yep. So I don't know if they do it in the States, but in England on election nights, traditionally they had a big dial which with a pointer on it, which sort of like swung from left to right depending on how the vote was going.
Okay.
And I think we should get one for Tyenna Merryweather on the Cersei Margaery sort of spectrum right. Where she lies. And I'll say in this chapter she was more on the Cersei side of things, I thought. But again, she was the voice of reason. Now, the voice of reason, you can certainly argue that the voice of reason is Team Cersei. If you say, hey, Cersei, let's not chop Margaery's head off just because he said under duress that he took her moon tea when there are two armies just on the doorstep.
On each side of us, right, yeah.
Exactly. You might say that's actually good counsel. It also happens to work in Margaery's favor because it lets her keep her head on.
You're right. Yeah. Right. Even in that, she is ambiguous, exactly, her allegiance.
Exactly. But apart from that sort of looking for hidden meaning there, she was definitely helping Cersei left and right in this chapter.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. She was... At least it felt like she was involved in the plotting. If she is a Margaery spy, she is like world-class spy level.
Right, and she's also deep down because basically she's been told, don't reveal yourself until the very last second. You know, you are a deep spy forevermore until we call on you.
Even when I lose my head, you're still spying.
Right. Yeah. Just as the axe goes up, then jump in and save me.
Right.
So the boar. Yeah. Why did Cersei want boar?
Right.
Did she just fancy it? Or the only other thing I could think of was it was to bestir thoughts of Robert's killing. But to what end, if that was the case?
Yeah, I think that way back when Robert died, they cooked up that boar, and I believe Cersei, I recall Cersei saying to someone or something along those lines that she loved the taste of wild boar ever since Robert died. Oh. That was like the best food she had ever had because it was the boar that killed Robert. So she apparently has taken quite an affinity to, she has quite an affinity for
maybe
boar.
Just a preference here, then, not actually trying to intimidate the blue bard with the smell of boar.
I don't think so. I think she just really likes boar these days. Wild boar at that.
Okay, this is my problem with this book. I read too much into everything. Every single sentence, I'm like, what does this mean?
What is this? Yeah, I think all of us do that at some point.
Mm-hmm. So then that got me wondering, and this fed into my boar phobia. Why was Orton Merryweather so worried during dinner? He couldn't eat. Tyenna's like feasting on every course, and Orton's picking at his food, terrified. I thought, he knows what boar means, but actually, it did occur to me after the fact that he knew what was going to happen to the blue bard. I was like, how would he know? He is married to Tyenna.
Right.
She knew what was coming.
Yes, I have a hunch that his wife tipped him off regarding the blue bard, and but like you said, he was unsettled at dinner, but then he quickly picked up what was about to happen when Cersei made her move. The line in the chapter is something like Cersei realized or recognized that he was aware of what was about to happen or what she was conveying.
Right.
But he didn't pick it up entirely. Because when Cersei, finally sprung her trap on the Blue Bard and said for Orton to have this man arrested, he said, "Ah, yes, how terrible, you seducing Margaery." And Cersei's like, no, other way around. She seduced him. That's the story we're going with. So, yes, I think he did know it was coming, but I don't think he had thought it all the way through exactly how this was supposed to play out.
Yeah, and like you said, he comes across as entirely innocent here, because if he had any guilt, he would have broken down at the loot across the face.
Right.
But he didn't break down until the torture got seriously out of hand. I mean, we have skipped over it both in the summary and now again we're skipping over it in the discussion because we're trying to do a PG podcast and there's no way to talk about what happened in that torture scene and stay PG.
It was pretty terrible. It really was. And but at the point that we were witnessing the torture, he still hadn't confessed.
Right, exactly. I think I'd be like, sorry, what is it I'm supposed to confess because I'll do it.
Whatever you need.
Seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. And sadly, this is the second singer that has paid the price for getting involved with the Lannisters. Mm-hmm. Now, I will say,
George Martin.
Simon Silvertongue did try to blackmail Tyrion, but, here the Blue Bard was just doing his job, just singing songs,
I tell you, there's something there. And George Martin's psyche. There's something there.
Yeah, he doesn't care for singers.
You know which character George Martin is in the book? He's Edmure Tully. That's who he is.
I like that idea. Yeah. But I said, I can't even imagine him lying for that long to put himself through this punishment to save Margaery.
God, no. God, no.
And at one point, Cersei even questions, do we have the wrong singer?
Right. Yeah. So, but then when he breaks, he really breaks, and he goes to town on naming names and dragging people into it. And this is very much, I don't know if you know the story of Henry VIII's second wife, Anne Boleyn. She was brought down in a very similar fashion. Oh. Basically, accusations of infidelity by half the court, and they basically turned on each other and pointed the finger at one another, and she was brought down by association. Almost certainly she was innocent of it. But there was so much it's I think that's what this is based on, basically. But when he does break, he really breaks because, he drags everybody in the red wines, and Cersei says no to that because she can't afford to offend the red wines and lose their fleet. And then Loras, that's a bad idea for a couple of reasons. The one she points to is the fact that he's believed to be, by everyone, gay.
Right.
But the secret reason that she didn't admit to herself or to us is she doesn't need to be accusing siblings of sleeping with each other too many times.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
That's not a good look and not a good reminder to anyone.
It's a little too close to home there.
Exactly.
Yes. Exactly. So she's fine with, the Hedge Knight, Sir Talad, the exile Jalabardjo, and lesser houses like Lambert Turnberry, who's from a Western house. But she steers very clear of the great houses. And you mentioned that she's afraid of losing the red wine fleet, but quite honestly, they're sailing home to defend their homeland. So I don't know that they're going to get mad at Cersei and stop defending their own homeland. So I don't think that was really an issue. But
true enough.
But then she promises the Blue Bard at the very end of the torture that he can take the black after testifying. And I wondered, is there any chance that that's true, that she lets him live to possibly tell the tale of this torture?
Yeah. I think perhaps you're right. I think perhaps he is doomed no matter what, because you might save yourself some sweat and tears by just saying that right at the start. Look, if you'll confess to the crimes we want you to confess to, we won't torture you and you can take the black.
Yeah.
If we're forced to torture you, we'll then be forced to kill you because we can't let rumors of your torture get out.
Yeah, she didn't let Felice take the black. She didn't let Felice join the Silent Sisters, or she suggested that she did it, but she didn't say, here's your options. You can be sent to Qyburn, or you can join the Silent Sisters. She just gave her to Qyburn, so I just don't know that she's really going to let him take the black here.
Yeah. The plan is tight, though, now. I mean, between the Moon Tea, which, I mean, presumably she can get Pycelle to testify to, the Tortured Singer, that's not going to be very compelling. So Osney's, obviously voluntary confession, that's a big one. And then, like I said, the other three being told that if they don't confess, they're going to be in real trouble.
Right.
That generally speaking, people will confess that's enough smoke to bring someone down, I would think.
Yeah.
And I think Tiena's plan of adding the cousins in is very clever, actually. Because, because then it feels a bit like the sort of Salem witch trials, sort of like these young girls pointing at each other and blaming each other. And Allah being told, you get away. You're the one who gets away. All you have to do is say you saw it all happen.
Right. They can't prove, they don't, aside from the Moon Tea, they don't have any proof of anything. And in order to keep the necessary evil of the Tyrell alliance and rid herself of Margaery, she has to catch him in the act, which is proving impossible to do.
Because it's not happening.
Right. So it is a unique detail to add in that Allah of all four young women is innocent. It does add a possible little nugget of believability. Like, we're not throwing them all.
Yeah, I agree. I absolutely agree that it's very, very clever for that reason. In fact, because what was interesting is that Cersei believed her to be very shy, and it works with someone very shy because she probably wouldn't participate because of her shyness, and sort of having to coax this out of her at a trial of some sort, it sounds believable coming from a shy person. But Tieina points out, she's quite sly as well.
Right.
And that means that you can offer her the sort of like carrot and stick aspect of this of, you know what, one of you cousins is going to confess to the other's crimes, and that one is going to get away scot-free.
Yeah. Well, that's the
question. Would you like that to be you?
I had at the end of the chapter was, will Allah go for it? Tieina feels pretty confident that she can get Allah to go along. So,
well, here's your choices. Let me talk to you, Allah. Okay, either all four of you were steeped in fornication, or those three were, and you tried to stop them.
Right. Yeah.
Which one do you choose?
Yeah. No, I mean, depending on how idealistic or naive she is, she might, side with honor, or if she is as sly as Tieina thinks she is, or suggests that she is, she might see the out here and take it.
Yeah. The other interesting part, I mean, the chapter is very good. I really enjoyed it, but I really think it's interesting that Cersei makes assumptions about Tiena's feelings towards her,
yeah, she does,
which aren't necessarily backed up by the evidence. The evidence that I've seen is Cersei sort of drunkenly forcing herself on Tieina, and Tieina sort of seeming to agree to it. And since then, Tiena's been kind of flirty with Cersei, I think is the sort of general tenor of things.
Yeah.
Cersei's assumption is that Tieina is in love with her and would do anything for her. But I'm not sure she understands power dynamics as well as she ought.
Right.
Because that's maybe what someone who just wants to curry favor would do.
I agree with you, and I disagree with Cersei. I think Tieina is in it for the social climb. And I mean, look, her husband is now Hand of the King, so it's not working. I think the sex and the flirting is because Tieina thinks that's what Cersei wants.
I 100% agree. She is absolutely trying to please Cersei as much as she can, and she believes that that's what Cersei is after.
Exactly.
And Cersei is completely misreading that signal, I think.
I agree.
Which is Cersei to a T, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
To ascribe meanings to other people's actions which are based on their adoration for her. What could be more Cersei?
Right. And what also is more Cersei is more bad dreams about.
Yes.
Maggie wasn't necessarily in this one, but
no, but it's based on Maggie because it's Tyrion. Basically, what happens is she reenacts the torture scene she's just witnessed down below.
Yeah.
With her in the role of the Blue Bard and Tyrion in the role of Qyburn.
Yeah.
Which is gruesome. It took the gruesomeness up a notch from an already gruesome place.
Yeah.
But this is where the Maggie connection comes in because it's the Valonqar chopping away at her.
Yeah, and when she wakes, she tells Tyenna the whole story, and she mentions the term Valonqar and that it means little brother. And I was thinking, have we divulged that? Has that the term? I know we've heard the term Valonqar. Has it been said previously?
I think we have. Now, it's possible it was in spoilers and I've forgotten, but I believe we have talked about that.
I couldn't recall either, but I mean, aside from that, there's really nothing.
Well, if we haven't, ladies and gentlemen, Valonqar is Old Valyrian.
High Valyrian.
High Valyrian for little brother.
Right. Yes.
Right? So there we are.
Yeah.
Who is her little brother? Tyrion, in two ways.
And also Jaime, because he is the younger of the two twins.
Good point.
But aside from that, there's really nothing new that comes out of that dream. I mean, other than that Tyrion is still very much living rent-free in her head. And, obviously this goes beyond her hatred of Tyrion and Joff's death. It goes to the prophecy in Tyrion. It's not just that she hates Tyrion because she believed Tyrion killed her son. It's because of the prophecy says that Tyrion is going to kill her, and she also believes he killed her son.
And Tyenna wakes up and does a good job of talking Cersei down from this, but it's hard. I mean, generally speaking, if someone says, "Oh, a witch put a curse on me," I'd say, "Well, it's not real. You'll be fine. Go back to sleep." But stuff keeps happening.
Yeah.
She's batting 1,000, basically.
So far, yeah.
Yeah.
And, also about the dream, Cersei's tough exterior is exposed a little bit after participating in this torture, affecting her in the way that has this torture-related dream.
Mackelly, from my considerable experience of torture, I would imagine that you don't have to be a weak and feeble woman to be extremely affected by witnessing what she just witnessed.
Absolutely. And it's very different because, let's face it, the Blue Bard is not the first person she has sent to Qyburn. But I think he's the first person she has witnessed what Qyburn is doing down there, too.
And here's the thing. This will give you the heebie-jeebies even more. He was just torturing this guy to try and get answers out of him.
Yeah.
It was carte blanche for what he was doing to Felice and the mountain.
Right. It's pretty awful. I don't even want to know what he's doing down there, quite honestly.
Exactly. So the next morning, she sort of girds her loins by thinking to herself, well, the next aspect of the prophecy that would come true is the death of Tommen and Myrcella. But she's never going to let anything bad happen to Tommen. She's going to protect him with her life. So this sort of reinforces her courage. Nothing bad can happen to Tommen because I'm here and because I die to see him safe.
Yeah.
And she actually has a fairly sweet breakfast with Tommen. Mostly not terrible parenting, but there's not some aspects of her usual terrible parenting. But there are some moments between them that are actually human.
Yeah. Right. No.
Which I'll take.
He's just such a sweet kid. And she thinks to herself, all I do for him, which is quite honestly a rather convenient story that she's telling herself. It's true on some level, but quite frankly, most she does for herself to create her own legacy. What was the thought she had, that she was going to be like the greatest ruler in Westerosi history? And something like, someday that Tywin will only be remembered as Cersei's father. And
right. But here's the thing. I mean, you could aspire to that. I mean, if if Tywin were to be told, you will be remembered as the father of the greatest monarch in the history of the Seven Kingdoms, he'd be like, rizzled.
Right,
you know?
Yeah.
But you're right. Cersei would be like, really? Just that?
That's all I'm known for?
Exactly. You see, she has that sort of narcissism that I think even that Tywin didn't have. Tywin was in it for the family name,
yes,
and she's in it for her.
That seemed to be his focus, is the family reputation. But so she has this sweet breakfast with Tommen, and he's a good little kid that she feels is too sweet, and she needs to toughen him up, which made me cringe a bit because now Tommen, under someone like Ned Stark's mentorship, might really become a fantastic king.
Because toughening up can happen without pointless cruelty.
Yes. Right, exactly.
I mean, just take them to the north. There'll be a man grown before he gets there.
That's right. He's twice Rickon's age. He has no excuse. But anyway, so after this breakfast, she calls on Ser Osney Kettleblack, and she has this one line when he first approaches, and he takes the knee and undresses her with his eyes, as she thinks he always does. And then she sits next to him and she says, "You did me a valiant service once." And that's the end of my thought. What could that be?
See, when I read it, and it's funny because on the reread I realized I was wrong. When I read it, I thought that maybe they'd slept together, and that's what she was talking about. But they haven't slept together. It's clear from the remainder of the chapter that he's never slept with her.
It is. See, this is where things get confusing, because if you take this chapter in a vacuum, I 100% agree with you, because he outright says, I will go tell this lie for you that I bedded a queen, but I'd like there to be a kernel of truth. And so I want to bed a queen.
Exactly.
But it was highly, because I thought the same thing you did. I thought, wait a second, I'm pretty sure that they have had sex before. So back in Cersei 4, it was highly suggested in that chapter that they had already slept together. And so she says in that chapter, he says to her, "I want you." And she says, "You've had me." And he says, "But only once." And they were certainly very comfortable together, because then he started touching her and touching her breasts and stuff. So it was very heavily implied.
Yeah.
And in that chapter, in that same conversation, she says to him, "You've had your reward for the valiant service." Because in that chapter, she says the same line, "You did me a valiant service once. You've had your reward."
So then she definitely wasn't talking about the sleeping with her, because that was the reward for the valiant service.
It's what it certainly came across in that chapter, that they had already been together. So I don't know if this is a second valiant service, or if she's still referring to that first one.
I think it's the same one. I just don't know what it is. But also, if I were her, I'd be slightly offended that he doesn't remember.
Am I that unmemorable?
Can you put the word refresher in there, please?
Right. Yeah, no. You're right. Yeah, that's true. That's true. When we get to spoilers, I'll have more to say on this, but
perhaps I'm Ser Osney.
But
we did? I don't remember that.
But about their sexual relationship, Osney and Cersei, Tyrion told Jaime that Cersei was sleeping with Ser Osmond Kettleblack. So It certainly appears, if we're right, and this is the second time that she slept with Ser Osney for favor, then this, she's having a sexual relationship with supposedly Osmond and Osney, and I wonder if the brothers know about each other. Or maybe Tyrion has it wrong, and it was actually Osney, not Osmond.
Right.
But Cersei does
I get them mixed up all the time. So,
and let's not even factor Osfryd into the whole thing. But it does seem that Cersei and Osmond are also very close, and that Osmond has replaced Jaime in some ways, kind of as her confidant. He's in on these secrets. He was in on the whole conversation about the cousins.
Right, yeah, with Tyenna, yeah.
So they're certainly...
that was a very sensitive conversation to be in, for him to be in on.
So there could be a level of intimacy with Osmond as well that we just haven't seen the details of.
Just before we finish, just one last rake of these calls that I think I've touched on several times. If you were Ser Osney, would you do this? I mean, the Lannisters do pay their debts, but you are exposing yourself horribly here.
Absolutely. You're trusting entirely in Cersei saving you.
Yeah.
Because you're putting yourself in serious jeopardy.
Yeah.
And it also seems like the wall plan is still on. We had talked about it being off.
Right.
Last chapter because of the whole Boris Blunt. Can Ser Osney defeat Boris Blunt? We thought maybe there was going to be a showdown to determine who was telling the truth and who was lying between Margaery and Osney. But he says in this chapter, am I still going to the wall? And she says, for just a little bit. So it seems that talk of Blunt as Margaery's Kingsguard champion against Osney must only be for Margaery's guilt and innocence, not his own.
That's a good point. And that actually tracks. That makes a lot of sense. He's still guilty of sleeping with the Queen, so he goes to the wall. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, it's time for some spoilers. Join us at the upper echelons of the Buy Me a Coffee Sustainer tiers, and you can get in on this action. That's juicy stuff right there.
Indeed. All
right, thank you. What about some background? If I were you, I'd do Hand of the King stuff here. That was my advice.
This chapter did not have a lot to go off of, so we've already talked about this ages ago. I think it was like episode 77 or something. We talked about Owen Merryweather, Orton's grandfather, as Hand of the King, but I'm going to remind everyone all about it. So Orton Merryweather is set to follow his grandfather Owen as Hand of the King, and Cersei mentions that Owen followed Tywin as Hand of the King to King Aerys II. She also says that, well, she doesn't say this out loud, she says it to us through her thoughts, that Owen was thought to be amiable but not very capable. So here's some more details I can fill in for you. So after Tywin left King's Landing in 281 AC, King Aerys began to focus his mistrust and paranoia on his son, Prince Rhaegar. Lord Merryweather, now acting as Hand of the King, and Grand Maester Pycelle tried to keep peace between the houses loyal to the king and those loyal to Prince Rhaegar. But Owen's downfall came, as Hand of the King, with his inability to squash Robert's rebellion. Because when Ned, Robert, and Jon Arryn began to make trouble for the crown, Owen wrote some sternly written letters to the lords of the realm, naming the trio as outlaws and calling for their heads. Unfortunately, this was not as effective as he had hoped. Eventually, the Mad King Aerys began to think that Owen was in league with the rebels himself, and thus had him stripped of his lands and exiled in 282 AC. However, when Robert claimed the throne, he did give the Merryweathers back their titles and some of their lands. So there you go. That's how the previous Merryweather Hand of the King stint worked out.
So comparison with the television show, because Tommen was aged up to a sort of lusty teenager, Margaery's virginity was never really in question, and so that couldn't be the focus of the plot against her.
Right.
So much of the anti-Tyrell plotting centered more around Loras's sexuality. He wasn't sent off to Dragonstone to get injured.
Okay.
Instead, he's the focus. We don't actually see Cersei doing much plotting around it. We see, well, this is probably jumping ahead a little bit, but since this is not going to happen in the book, the Faith arrest Loras, and Cersei, within the TV show, repeatedly disavows knowledge or involvement in that arrest.
Okay.
That's as far as I want to go.
All right.
Pedantry, I didn't see anything this time. I'm looking, though. I want some juicy pedantry, and I'm not getting any.
It's been a while. Our pedantry sections have been quite barren.
news and notes.
Well,
tell us more about George Martin in Europe.
Yes, so news from the realm. George Martin continued his travel log of his trip to Europe on his blog, which is called Not a Blog. I suggest you all go read it. It's usually pretty enlightening. Well, this week's installment focused on his time at Oxford. He enjoyed a walk around the hallowed literary grounds, and he had hoped to visit the Eagle and Child, where Tolkien and C.S. Lewis and the Inklings met to discuss their literary ideas, but unfortunately, it was closed for renovations. He also did a Q&A and book signing while he was there, and he posted the entire 53-minute-long video of the discussion, the Q&A and all that in his blog entry. I will admit I've watched some of it. I have not watched all of it yet, but, it's there. I'm sure it's interesting. Mm-hmm. But on his way back to London, he stopped at Tolkien's grave. But he will save that for another day, as shall we.
All right. Just a reminder that the Ghosts of Harrenhal Threadless site is back open for the holidays. It's ghostsofharrenhal.threadless.com. Load up on merch. You know your family want t-shirts. They want mugs. They want the hoodie.
That's right. They want the Rick and Who mug. Who doesn't? That's what the mug should say. Who doesn't want a Rick and Who mug? But yeah, can I tell you something slightly funny about maybe one last piece of evidence that Simon's an idiot? I read this next section that we had a new Buy Me a Coffee sustainer called TWO. In fact, that is incorrect. We have not one, but TWO. New Buy Me a Coffee sustainers.
Oh, we got two. I get it.
That's right. Would you like to introduce the first one? I'll introduce the second.
I'll do the first one. Andrew has joined us at the Night of the Realm tier. That is fantastic. Thank you so much, Andrew. Looking forward to getting to know you.
Absolutely. And Tom has just joined us at the Landed Night tier, which is awesome. So thank you both so very much. We really appreciate it. Really, it really means so much to us. And we look forward to interacting with you all. Yeah.
All right, let's conclude this one. Cersei's trap is ready to spring. I mean, it's got everything you need right there.
I'd say. This good dream here might offset the bad Maggie the Frog nightmares. I mean, she couldn't have asked for better information from Pycelle.
Yeah. Which is funny because every other facet of this is just people under duress saying what she wants.
Right.
But that was someone under some duress saying something she really wanted them to say, but she didn't even know it. But she was delighted when she heard it.
Which still makes me wonder, was he saying it because it's true, or was he saying it because he was under duress and figured what she wanted to hear?
Yeah. Has Grand Maester Pycelle stayed too long in King's Landing? I mean, he is a plaything for Cersei at this point.
Yeah.
She has utter disdain for him.
Right. Her thoughts, if he could read her mind, well, I mean, if anybody in the same vicinity of her could read her mind, they would be shocked and aghast at the terrible thoughts she has about everyone. But,
apart from Tana Merryweather, who would go, yeah, you're right. I do love you.
That's right. But yeah, I really think, 84... you don't need this anymore. When was the last time that this realm was under good leadership? We go from Aerys to Robert, who was a drunk and not very attentive. Thankfully, John Arryn did a good job, but then, it's just been a fiasco since then. Just head to Old Town and ride out your days there.
That's what I would do.
Sipping cider.
So, in absolutely the least surprising news ever, Cersei is not above the torture of clearly innocent people to get what she wants. That's not even remotely surprising. What is a little bit surprising is that she had the stomach to witness it herself. I mean, she was revolted, but any human being would be revolted by what she saw.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Like I said, seeing it in person versus sending people to Qyburn, a whole different ball of wax there. It's just awful. At least one point, she wanted to flee from what was happening, but
Yeah.
girded her loins.
I do wonder, of course, that if she had to be there, though, because she needed to hear what he said to rule out the problems. I think Qyburn probably could have done it, but...
Yeah. He might have picked up on the let's not involve incest one, at least.
Wise man says, do not mention that.
But the Merryweathers are about to come into yet an even bigger social jump from Justicar. Is that how we pronounce that word? Justicar? I don't know.
Justicar. Let's go with Justicar.
From Justicar to Hand of the King. I mean, Cersei seems to highly respect Tiana. She actually wishes that Tiana could serve as Hand of the King because she thinks she's, as she puts it, 3 times the man that her husband is.
Yeah.
But they're certainly moving up the ladder. Can't go much higher than Hand of the King.
And one of the reasons that Tiana is 3 times what her husband is because of her plan to involve the cousins in this scheme. Well, technically, she brought them up, and Cersei suggested bringing them down as well. But the clever part of this plan is Tiana's, which is to exclude Alla from the accusation in order to have one of them accuse the others and bring them all down.
Yeah, it's a good plan.
Would she sell them out? I think she will.
Yeah, well, that's what we'll have to see. Yeah, I mean, Tiana seems to be fairly confident that she will, but the plan overall was a pretty good one because they were talking about at the beginning of the chapter about how her cousins are Margaery's castle walls. Well, if they're her castle walls, then you tear down the walls to get to the castle.
That's true enough. Yep. And Osney, well, he's putting his head in the noose for Cersei here.
Yeah.
He's going to admit to treason in bedding Margaery and the cousins. And when you admit to treason, your life is forfeit.
Yep.
And you're relying on favors of other people to get you out of that mess.
Yeah. Is a smart plan. She is offering him significant rewards, lordship, castles, being her paramour. But that's if she holds up her end of the bargain. Or is he just, not thinking clearly, I will say.
And also, let's not forget, we have heard earlier in the book that the Kettleblacks work for Littlefinger.
That's right.
So maybe there's some other game within the game here.
That is right. Yes. Yeah, that's a really good way to point. Yeah, I'm trying not to say good point because everybody says I say good point too much. I can't think of anything else to say.
All right. Well, next week we've got the Princess in the Tower, and I assume we're back to Dawn there, but we'll have to see. That's my supposition that we're back to Dawn.
That feels like a pretty solid.
Often in Dawn we get sort of like cryptic titles for the chapters.
Yes, that's true. Right. Yeah, hadn't thought about that. Mm-hmm. We do in Dawn.
Mm-hmm. There's 4 ways that you could help us. You could leave us a positive review. You can buy merchandise, just briefly, at ghostsofharrenhal.threadless.com. You can buy us a cup of Arbor Gold at buymeacoffee.com/ghostharrenhal. There you can join us at any of the various sustainer levels. There's a tier to match your budget and interest. Join Andrew and Tom and the rest and get to interact with us more. Or you can make a donation directly to our website at ghostsofharrenhal.buzzsprout.com.
And if you're looking for more ways to interact with us, well, one thing you could do is you could send us a text. A link is at the top of every episode show notes. Just keep in mind we can't respond, unfortunately. And if you're looking to keep up on the latest Ghosts of Harrenhal news and developments, well, then check us out on our social media. You can follow us on Twitter at Ghost Harrenhal. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Discord, and YouTube.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Whatever happened to Feyre, that delicate satin-draped frame? As it clung to her thigh, how I started to cry, 'cause I wanted to be dressed just the same.